Hey fuckers, today we're gonna be talking about some Guild Wars 7. No, shit, sorry, Guild Wars 2. That was a shitty joke, I'm sorry. But, we're saying goodbye to the End of Dragons era of Guild Wars 2. Obviously, that we can go back and play it, all the content's still gonna be relevant. But it's just the era, the main menu and the launcher and everything, all that vibes, that you get from the End of Dragons era. Um, this is it, man. This is the last day that we are going to be in this era. Tomorrow, Secrets of the Obscure launches, and we will begin that new annual expansion, more consistent content sort of era. And I have a lot of concerns about that. I've talked about them in the past, and I will inevitably talk about it in this video because there's a lot of really negative concerns that I have with this new model. But this is about End of Dragons here, and End of Dragons was truly just so special to me. Was it the greatest expansion? No. A lot of people consider it to actually be the worst out of the bunch. But I still loved it, man. I've been playing this game since April of 2020, so this was my first ever launch of an expansion. And fuck me, was it special, dude. I had such a good time with the launch of End of Dragons. Seriously, I knew going in it was going to be one of the best days of my life, and it truly was. It was just such an amazing time to play. Video games as a whole, like when End of Dragons came out, was just like, fuck, dude. Like, going back to that time, thinking about it is just like, it gives me goosebumps, because it launched on February 28th of 2022, right? And if you remember, around that time we had a few other, really fun games to play. So it was just like, oh god, it was such an amazing time, dude. Like we had End of Dragons. I play Destiny. I've been playing Destiny since 2015, so I had the Witch Queen expansion to play. And then I also, oh boy, here we go. I also had Elden Ring, alright? And I fucking adore Elden Ring, man. That game is so goddamn fucking good. One of my favorite games of all time. Just, that was such an insane time to be just playing video games, man. I honestly think it was one of my favorite, just times of gaming in my entire life. I'm 22, so I haven't really been around for that long, but I've been around for a decent amount of time when it comes to gaming. I've been gaming since, I was like fucking 4 years old with the PS2, right? I've been around for a good amount of time with this shit, so, but, yeah, it was truly one of the best times of my life. Like, it really was in terms of just the gaming, ness of it. And yeah, End of Dragons, like I said, great fucking time to play. I kind of like the story. I felt like it was kind of weak at times, but I sort of liked it. It did feel like a rushed sort of story, as a lot of the Guild Wars 2 stories go. I don't, really think the Guild Wars 2 story is that good. A lot of people seem to kind of like it, but I've never really thought it was like a standout thing of Guild Wars. I always thought it was sort of just like, the background to what you're doing in a new expansion, right? The new maps and meta events and elite specs and all that. Like, that's what I personally imagine those as. The only story that I truly enjoyed was Path of Fires, I would say, out of like all the different, Guild Wars 2 story shit campaigns and all that. As far as the elite specs go, they were pretty fun. I gotta say that they've gotten a lot better over time. At launch, a lot of, there was a good amount that didn't really feel that good. Vindicator didn't really feel that good. Untamed was shitted on galore, even though I played it and I liked it. The fucking Mechanist was, really goddamn good when that came out. It shipped very fucking overtuned. And then, the Catalyst, I still hate Catalyst to this day. A lot of people seem to like it more, but that shipped very, very odd. It seemed to most of them kind of didn't do too well with the player bases, at launch. But I enjoyed a lot of them, honestly. At the very least, I enjoyed playing them, and I enjoyed having that new play style to fuck around with. Big new trait trees and new builds to fuck around with. I really enjoyed that. It's a lot better than, unlocking the weaponry from other elite specs. To me, that's a lot fucking cooler. Getting a big ass elite spec than that. But we'll talk about that in a bit. Yeah, that was cool. The maps were really cool. I think Kaineng was the worst one. But my favorites personally were Sangtun Province, and then the Echovald Wilds. I really like the Echovald Wilds. That map is very dark. It's like this forest map kind of thing, right? But it's a very dark, I guess dank. I don't know. I don't know how to like describe it properly. I know dank is like, you know, kind of like a meme word, but it's just this dark fucking forest, man. It's hard to fucking see. There's just a lot of like trees and it's a very like edgy kind of forest, so that makes sense. Like I don't really know how to describe it too much, you know, because you have these sort of natives to the area, and as an untamed man, I connect with the area. Okay, like, you know, untamed people just really fucking pissed off. You know, it's like, you're fucking with my nature, bitch. Like, that's sort of how they are, you know. I don't know. I really enjoyed the Echovald Wilds. I thought it was fun. But Seitung Province was my favorite. It was one of those, you know, it's a starter map. It's a very, you know, lighthearted, beautiful sort of area. You know, there's not like any massive amount of like destruction and like, you know, like just like enemy architecture and like just, you know, absurd areas, you know, like the Desolation or something where it's just fucked, you know, it's all fucked over there. So, you know, it's a starting map, you know, Crystal Oasis, Verdant Brink was actually a bit different, you know, but, you know, shit like that. I always really enjoy that. Grothmar Valley, I enjoy the sort of starter maps to the whatever the new era is. And yeah, I thought Seitung Province was probably the standout map. I'm not really a guy who gives a fuck about map-wide meta events personally. I like meta events, but I don't play them all the time. I'm not like a huge. I much prefer dynamic events actually over meta events. I like exploring the world and doing all the different stuff and coming across these random things. I much prefer that, which is actually why I'm looking forward to the new rifts. But yeah, Dragon's End, not really my thing. I barely actually even played Dragon's End. A lot of people had a lot of difficulty with it at launch, I know that, but it seems like people have gotten better with it over time. I don't really know, though. I haven't played it in forever, so I really have no idea. But, yeah, that's the maps. They're pretty good. Ender Dragon shipped, I think, 4 or 5 new strike missions, which were pretty fucking fun. You know, I really enjoyed those strike missions. I never did the challenge modes. I don't think. I mean, I did the strike missions. Wasn't there like a harder version of it that wasn't like a challenge mode? I fucking forget, man. I don't really remember. I haven't done a strike in fucking forever, but yeah, they were pretty fun. I enjoyed them. You know, the strikes are definitely like harder than sort of like, you know, other kind of stuff like that, like trials in Final Fantasy XIV. Like if you go into like a base trial, it feels like the strikes that you play are definitely harder than like those base trials. But yeah, people really sucked at launch. People were really bad at those strikes. I'm assuming they've gotten, you know, to farm status pretty quickly. I stopped doing them after like maybe like a month in. And of course we had the Siege Turtle, really cool, you know, mount. And I never really used it that much, honestly. I'm looking forward to the new Skyscale Masteries more than I did the Siege Turtle. Fishing was a huge new thing. Fishing and skiffs. This was like to me at least, this was sort of like the mounts and the masteries and elite specs that Heart of Thorns brought. And, you know, of course, mounts is Path to Fire. But this was sort of like that to me, you know. I thought the fishing with the skiffs... Fishing by itself is not, like, a huge thing, right? But the skiffs is, like, the really cool shit to me. Because, you know, the skiffs have their own masteries, fishing too, but the skiffs have their own masteries. And, you know, it just feels good to, like, drive that fucking thing on the ocean, you know. It feels really good to... Especially if you have a really cool-looking skin for it. It feels really cool to just go out on the ocean with the boys, you know. And or just some random fucking people, you know. You could just see some random people be like, "Hey man, get in my fucking boat, bro. We're going fucking fishing. Yo, get the hell out of here. We're going fishing with the boys, all right?" And you could just go out and just fish forever, you know. And I also liked some of the depth fishing had. You know, the mini game itself wasn't really too much. It was pretty easy to understand, but you know, there was the fishing power stat and multiple different ways you can get up like higher and higher. There was the mastery as well, where the more you fish, you know, and stay in that boat or whatever, your mastery, your like fishing power goes up and up and up. And I don't know, there was just a lot of like really fun systems behind fishing that I thoroughly enjoyed doing, and I still do. You know, fishing is still a very good way to get money because of the chunk of ancient amber cock or whatever the fuck. That is a pretty good gold seller. So yeah, I still enjoy fishing to this day, man. I think fishing in Guild Wars 2 is probably the best that I've seen in the video game. Maybe besides New World, I really enjoyed New World's fishing. And Destiny 2 has some really good fishing too, actually, surprisingly. You know, I just enjoyed that ability to go wherever the fuck you want on a skiff, go out and do shit, you know. And there wasn't any like bullshit systems behind the skiff. You didn't have to like refill the resources and like use like materials to make it better. And no, they just gave you a skiff. You had masteries to make it better, and it was this more convenient, streamlined but in a good way version of these boats that you see in like BDO. You know, they have all this weird shit behind it, and it's like, I don't fucking want that. I just want to go out on my boat and go fucking fishing, you know? And that's what I liked. I love that way more than just standing on some land and fishing into a little pool or like a river or some shit, you know? I like going out in the ocean on my fucking boat. And the End of Dragons maps are really good for that. One of my favorite areas being the Kaining Docks. You just so much goddamn fucking spots over there. It's crazy. Seitung Province is probably my favorite like area to fish just in the game, honestly. But I just brought so many new areas to go to. It's similar to like the underwater skimmer mastery in that, you know, it made you really want to explore these different areas that you didn't really want to explore before. Like, I never gave a fuck about going underwater and exploring a bunch of shit until I got the skimmer. You know, the underwater mastery for the skimmer. I was able to just dive in and just go to all these areas that I didn't give a fuck about it before, and all of a sudden I'm like, wow, this is really cool. They put some cool shit over here, and they actually paid a bit of detail over here, you know, and sort of appreciate those new elements. I always really enjoyed that. So fishing and skiffs really allowed me to experience that, not only for the new End of Dragons maps, but also for really the entire game that has a decent amount of water, you know, where you can actually kind of go out and fish. That's kind of the issue of some maps, you know. There's not any like huge amount of fishable areas. Like, I was always wanting to go fishing in Queensdale, but it just doesn't work very well, you know. You can still do it, but if you really want to go out on a skiff, there's a couple areas that work relatively well, but it's not anything really that insane. So that was the downside of that. Yeah, I think that kind of covers the basis of everything that was like the big shit for End of Dragons. As far as I can think, I don't think there was anything else that was like, you know, the big features of it. I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a good expansion, and despite being, you know, the quote-unquote worst of, you know, what Guild Wars 2 has had to provide us as far as expansions go, I still think it was better than most other MMO expansions. Like, I think Arena's just really goddamn good at giving us good expansions, and that's why I'm holding on to some hope of the new yearly model that'll be good, because now I'm getting into the negative part. I don't like the new yearly model because it doesn't allow them to give us big sandbox items, you know, like elite specs, because they don't have enough time to do it. And I've seen a couple of comments, and I might have this completely wrong. Maybe I'm just being a moron here, but this is just how I feel. You know, I've seen a couple of people talk about different, you know, ideas with it. Like, they could do 3 at a time, right? But then you're leaving out other classes, and that's not going to be cool, especially if you're selling it to them. You know, that's not going to work out very well. Just for, you know, player-based relationship-wise, it's just not a good move. And then you also have the I've seen people say, well, they could still develop it over multiple years. I don't think that's going to happen, because I don't think they'd want to put resources into something that'll take, you know, 2 expansions or whatever to be able to do, instead of putting in those resources into giving us more shit for the newest expansion, you know? I just can't see them doing that. They just don't have the time to do what they did before. And I know a lot of people, you know, I've seen people be like, I'm okay with that, we already have enough elite specs and all that, but like, in another year or two, I don't know about that one, Chief. I don't know if you're going to feel the same way in a year or two. You know, I remember how people felt back in, like, when I started the game in 2021, they were just fucking desperate for new elite specs, dude. Just desperate. So I really see that happening again, you know, especially with what will be more drip-fed kind of a feeling. Even if it's not, it'll still feel like things are being held back and drip-fed to us with this new quarterly updates and shit like that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just really concerned about them giving us big sandbox stuff that I really enjoyed at the expansions, and that were like a huge draw to just playing the game. You know, all these different, you know, things to play around with. I always, you know, when End of Dragons, I think at the very least was worth the money for the lead specs alone. You know, I think all the expansions are that way. So it just kind of sucks seeing that we're not going to get those under the new system. And I can't see it ever happening. I can't see us getting those new elite specs under the new system. And one thing I don't get is the whole role argument, you know? Like, we already have all the roles covered and shit like that. It's like, okay, who fucking cares? Like, give us new... Yeah, sure, engineer gets another DPS option or something, you know? But it has a different playstyle, a different feeling. You know, all of them could do DPS. All the engineer picks can do DPS. They all cover that same role, right? But they just feel different. They play different. It's for a different fantasy, right? A different sort of build that you like playing. That's sort of the thing with these kind of games, you know? You don't just hold back shit for the sake of balance. You know, who fucking cares? This isn't a competitive game, right? It's 11 years old, right? Like, who fucking cares at this point? You know, go ape shit. And it just sucks, you know, especially with Guild Wars 1. How, as far as I know, there was like over like 1,000 spells or some shit. You know, obviously ArenaNet's done that kind of thing before, and you know, there's a lot of stuff in this game, you know, but I don't know, it just sucks. It really hurts going from getting these elite specs every expansion to now it's like, hey guys, you could use weapons from other elite specs, which on paper sounds cool, right? But in reality, I really don't feel like, and I made a whole video on it, but I don't feel like this is going to be anything really that meta-defining like ArenaNet, you know, wants. It seems like it would be, right? From ArenaNet, they're like, yeah, it's gonna be just this insane amounts of like new ways to play, and it's like, I mean, I guess if you're okay with like shit builds and all that, but like, if you want to at least play somewhat decent, I don't think you're gonna use like a staff on anything but Druid. You know, I don't think that's gonna happen. Or Dagger on fucking Untamed, you know, as Untamed is not exactly very Condi friendly. So as far as I know, I mean, maybe it is. I really have no idea. I'm an idiot. So yeah, that's the video, man. I feel like I probably drew this on for too long. I'm just, you know, concerned with what's coming next, but thankful for what I've gotten, you know. And End of Dragon's really, really good era for the game. I thoroughly enjoyed it, despite the lack of Living World being a thing. You know, we had the Season 1 remaster. And, yeah, that's it. Peace. I'll see you guys in the Shoto, brothers.